Father, I need you. I need you to speak through me, Father. I need you to continue to keep my voice strong. Father, I just thank you for how faithful you are in the answer to prayer. Father, thank you for just continuing to just show me where I fail so that I may be better. I pray you use for your glory, Father, in Jesus' name, amen. So let me grab this over here just real quick. Cameron don't have to follow me. I won't move very much after this. Need this for my water. So, the ones that were here like a month ago when I spoke, or a few weeks ago, I don't remember how long ago it was, but I was talking about how I've been failing as a man, right? That's a biblical man. And, man, the things the Lord has shown me since has been, it's been eye-opening. It almost is so eye-opening that I feel foolish for not seeing them. And my eyes were open just yesterday reading through some things. And, it's just crazy how God works. But Bo had asked me to speak on just a little bit more of that. Didn't really know what to say at first. But after talking with Chris Friday, it became very, very clear of what I was supposed to do. Didn't even really know then what I was supposed to be speaking about, but I knew that it had to be, what has God shown me, right? And so just to let y'all know, I have failed since I last spoke standing down here. I failed, just so everybody knows. But we have a very forgiving God, and so, thank God for that. So, but the message today is about being offended, because, and I'll get to it in a little bit, but I realized this week I've been easily offended, and man, it's not good. And I know that being easily offended is probably what a lot of people in here today are. If you really, by this message, I hope that you can be honest with yourself on that, because being easily offended is not a good place to be. And when I realized, because me and Emily fought Friday, we don't fist fight or anything like that, but we had a very kind of heated disagreement for our standards in the workplace Friday, and it was all because I was easily offended, and I'll get over that in a little bit, because So, but if y'all will open up your Bibles if you got them, or your phones, whatever you want to do, and we're going to start in Matthew chapter 5. And so, let me get to my page here. So, actually, to hold your spot there, I want to switch to James real quick to kind of set the stage for where we're going. James 1:19, most of y'all probably know this verse, but it says to be quick to hear, right? And slow to speak and slow to anger. Other translations is slow to be offended. Once I started really unpacking this yesterday, I started realizing that most of the time when we're angry, it's because we're offended. And it's like crazy to think that. You're like, man, I never get offended. I'm angry all the time. Most of the time it's because you got offended. So just make that note, James 1:19, if that is for you. But I always try to be slow to anger, but for some reason I've been quick to anger here lately. And so, Matthew chapter 5, we'll start with verse 21. So under the law of Moses, the rule was, if you murdered, you must die. But I have added to that rule and tell you that if you are only angry, even in your own home, you are in danger of judgment. If you call your friend an idiot, you are in danger of being brought before the court. And if you curse him, you are in danger of the fires of hell. Verse 23, so if you are standing before the altar in the temple, offering a sacrifice to God, and suddenly remember that your friend has something against you, leave your sacrifice there beside the altar and go and apologize and be reconciled to him. And then come back and offer your sacrifice to God. Come to terms quickly with your enemy before it is too late, and he drags you into court, and you are thrown into a debtor's cell, for you will stay there until you have paid the last penny. Pretty intense, isn't it? A couple things there. The different translations are going to say different things. I think if you're, I want to say New King James, it doesn't say, if you call your friend an idiot, it'll say raka, right? Or it may say, call yourself a fool, whatever it is. If you do see the word raka, I looked it up. It's not a Greek word. It is in the Greek scripts, but it's I think it's an Aramaic word, I think is the correct pronunciation, but it means foolish or foolish one, empty-headed. And so in my translation it says idiot, But just you see that. If you see the word raka like that means if you're calling them a name to degrade them, basically. And I don't know about y'all, but I have used far worse words than the word raka or idiot or whatever. And so, but what it's talking about is it's the little offense, and if you have it in your heart, that's where a lot of times it starts, right? And so, this is even saying if you are only angry, which means you hadn't even acted on it yet, you're still guilty, right? And one thing that I've learned is that if you have that anger or that offense inside you, and you sit there and you cultivate it and nurse it, and you sit there and kind of play with it, whatever, man, it will consume you. And it's like that stepping stone or that stumbling block, like that one little bitty offense. I saw an analogy given of this guy had this board in someone's eye, a big long 2x4, and he was like, man, it's this huge offense in this guy's eye, but it started with a little bitty speck, and it grew into a bunch of, a lot of times when you see huge offenses, it starts out with little bitty ones, right? And so, the one thing about relationships, I've said this many times, the people that are closest to you can hurt you the worst, right? Everybody kind of know that. And so the truth to that is, the closer the relationship, the greater the opportunity. It works both ways. The greater the opportunity for intimacy, right? But also the greater the opportunity for offense. And so it works both ways. It's not like it's one or the other. And so that's why, if you're married in this room, your spouse can hurt you worse than anyone. And that's why. They have the greatest opportunity for that. And so nothing to scare you for the ones that aren't married, but that's something you always got to be on guard for. Because the words that come out of your mouth, it could just be one little word, man, it can cut them deep. And the way I speak to a friend, I can't speak to my wife that way a lot of times. Not that it's inappropriate, it's different. I used to fail in marriage early on be during the work day, and so I would treat my wife the way I treat my employees. Not that I'm disrespectful to them, but I would always say, hey, I'm in work mode, and things got to get done right then. And she used to always tell me, she's like, I don't work for you. And I'm just like, ugh, you know what I mean? And so luckily I don't think I've done that in a while, praise the Lord. But that was my life, right? I used to fail at that. And so, so I got this water. I didn't even know if I was going to be able to sing today. Man, Lord healed my voice enough last night when I went to sleep that I could sing today. But yeah, my voice is definitely weak today. So, to piggyback off of that about the relationships being close, I made this little note. Nobody can make you mad like the ones you love. And no one can hurt you like the ones you give your heart to. Everybody kind of see that? The famous question I always ask myself when I get into, when I figure out there's an offense, and I figure, like maybe Friday night, I told Kristen and them about what happened between me and Emily that day, and the question I always find myself asking, and I wrote it and underlined it on this page, is how did we get here? When you start looking at marriages and they start failing, the question that always gets asked at some point is, how did we get here? And it's like that every time. When the offense first starts, you don't ask that question. It's down the road when you didn't take care of it. You always look back and you're like, man, how did we get here? How is there a separation between me and my spouse? how is it that me and my son don't have a relationship anymore? And so, but that's the famous question is how did we get here? And it should be a question that brings great conviction to anyone, is that question. I asked that question Friday. Man, how did we get here? I so want to tell that story, but I want to wait on it. But anyway, so, but just so you know, guys, like this message that I'm bringing is because this is what the Lord's showing me right now. Friday night, I didn't know what I was going to say. I was like, man, I don't want to speak on what Tony Evans showed me, that the Spirit showed me through Tony Evans. I don't want to speak on that. I feel like it wasn't for me to do again. And so my prayer Friday night was, man, what is it you're trying to show me, God, that I don't see? And what he showed me is why that argument between me and my spouse ever happened Friday. I've said this many times. It takes one to forgive. It takes two to reconcile. That's very much the truth. I had to call my mom last night. So weird. Because I started reading through this, and I called her because I was late. And she goes to bed early, but I couldn't wait. I had to know. Because I started reading through this, and I'm like, man, she came to my office a few months back, and she wanted to apologize for. My mom's watching this right now, so Mom, I apologize for telling this story. But she wanted to apologize to me for just the way she was as a mother as I was growing up. And, I'd already forgave her years ago, but she didn't know that. And so even though I forgave her years ago because I wasn't going to hold that against her anymore, she's my mom, and I love her, she still had to ask me for my forgiveness so that she could forgive herself. And I called her last night because I had this urgency that maybe I didn't respond to her well enough when she called or when she came by my office, because I don't know if I gave her the opportunity to forgive herself. Because naturally, like, I try to be macho. I don't know why I'm crying. Man, hang out with Chris too much. But this means so much to me. But yeah. Oh man, thank you, bro. I love you, man. The natural side of me is anytime someone gives me a compliment, I kind of shake it down. I don't really like compliments or praises, and it's just not who I am. But when people say, I'm sorry, I always say, man, don't worry about it. You ain't got to apologize to me. You ain't got to apologize to me. Don't worry about it. Like, that's my natural thing to do. And after reading through all this, yesterday I realized that's not what my mom needed to hear from me. And so I called her and I was like, Mom, I need to make sure that I handled it correctly when you're in my office a few months back, because I don't want to wait another day. And I know it's late, but I got to know, did I give you the chance to forgive yourself? And she's like, oh, you did. You kept saying it over and over again that you forgive me. And I was like, just got to make sure. Like, it frightened me to think that if something would have happened, I would have never known if my mom ever forgave herself. And so it's very important. It's just something I got to always be mindful for. Is she was never going to be able to forgive herself if I didn't give her the chance. And so just always remember, it takes two to reconcile. It takes two to reconcile. Yeah, I did not think I was going to cry. I'm sorry, Mom, about that story. But, man, the way division starts, just kind of transitioning over. Oh, man, that goes amplified. It starts with little offenses. Like, that's how it starts. I know sometimes there's big offenses, like betrayal, adultery, like there's those things. But today I'm more talking about all the rest of them that start with the little ones in your heart, and then they grow because everybody loves. That's why I got this little stone, man. Everybody loves to hold that little fence, that little stone. They can throw it. You know what I mean? And so Chandler brought me a perfect stone from outside, so it was perfect. But one thing that I've always known, and I'm glad I wrote this down years ago, is unmet expectations is the breeding ground for offenses. And It's a breeding ground for offenses. And unexpressed expectations is the breeding ground for unmet expectations. Let me say that again. Unmet expectations is the breeding ground for offenses. Okay? Unexpressed expectations is the breeding ground for unmet expectations. And so what I mean by that, and this is what happened Friday. Man, this is when it hit me, is I read through this note that I made like 3 years ago on my iPhone. I don't understand why I never look at this stuff, but we all have expectations, right? And when they're not met, we get offended. That's why it's the breeding ground. But if you don't express what it is that you're wanting or desiring, that's why it's the breeding ground for unmet expectations. They didn't know. My unmet expectations, which I never expressed to Emily, is that no matter how rough a morning she's having with Oliver, I didn't want her to come in showing frustration in the office. But she never knew that. I never told her. That was my unexpressed expectations. And so, man. And so, yeah, for y'all that, some of y'all need to write that down. Like, it is the breeding ground to be offended. And it's crazy as you're like, man, you're telling me I get offended by not expressing something? Yeah. It's the breeding ground for it being unmet if they don't know. I mean, it's simple, but yet we fall to it so quickly. It's almost, for some reason, and it seems like Christians are the ones that are so easily offended. I don't get it. Why is it that we're so, and this is me too, like, why is it that we're so offended when we have no reason to be? Like, I mean, we have no right to be offended, but yet we still get offended. It seems like more than any other religion or whatever. It seems like Christians are just, maybe we're just way more outspoken about it. I don't know, but it seems like we're always so quick to be offended. It's scary to think that you have to really watch every word you say because people will take offense to any little thing. And so another part of being offended is it's not always what you do. Part of it's what you don't do. What offends my wife, well, a lot of things offend her that I do, but I'm trying to work on them. But there's a few things that really offend her. And one of the things is, leaving stuff around. She's very, very organized. And I got my little spot right empty my pockets. She don't like that. If I make a mess, or she gets offended if I, leave toothpaste on the towel, but I've known this. But it's like I just don't even think about it. It's unintentional. But it's what I don't do sometimes that offends her. And if I don't take out the trash, it's offensive to her. Some of y'all might think that's crazy, but I think most married men would think that was pretty normal. Got to take that trash out. But if I don't help with Oliver, putting him to bed, it's the things that you don't do that are just important as the things that you do. And I'm still learning that. When you are offended, I'll just tell you what happened Friday because this is bugging me now. So I'm at work. We're having a little office party Friday for a coworker's or birthday and all that. And Emily comes in. You can tell she's not having a good day because Oliver's been one of them kids. He's 2.5, and he's a lot. And so she comes in, and I already know she's not having a good mood, but that unexpressed expectation was that I didn't care at the time what kind of morning she was. She's in the workplace. She needs to, put that Sunday smile on. But that's unreasonable for me to expect that, because if the shoe's on the foot, I don't think I'd do it either. And so. But anyway, here's how little the offense was, and this is how easily I got offended. She told me if I was going to wear those pants, I needed to tighten my belt because my pants were falling off. And I'm like, how dare you? You know what I mean? I mean, it was worse than that. I mean, that was kind of like a theatric moment, but it was like, instantly I'm like, what'd you just say? Like, I'll wear them how I want to, you know? Like, I'm the man, you know what I mean? And man, it wasn't good. She was literally just trying to look out for me. She wanted to make sure I looked my best in the workplace for what I was wearing, and that's how easily I got offended. How sad is that? And so it went from that to, we're giving Oliver ice cream, and I wanted to put it in a bowl. She said, put it in the cup. It's decorative, and I'm like, he needs a bowl. He can't use the cup. And so here's where the offense grew into like almost like a stick, is instead of me letting it go, I had to prove a point to her that I was right. And that's when now I've offended her. Because it wasn't about being right or wrong. She asked for me to do something, and I jumped down her throat for it. And the one thing about it is Jesus never really asked us to be right. He asked us to walk in love. That's what I was telling the worship team earlier. And so it comes down to, do you want to make a point or you want to make a difference? And Friday, all I want to do is make a point. And so it started escalating from there. And so I just got it and walked off. Still in the middle of the party, I just walked back to my office, and I'm like, I don't want to say something bad. I feel like I'm offended. I'm angry, Didn't use the word raka, but I was offended, right? And so she ends up leaving. A couple hours go by while I go home. But I had this mentality of I'm not apologizing first. Ain't happening. I apologize first all the time. How many people can do that? How many people attest that? I apologize first all the time. They didn't meet me halfway this time. You know what I mean? And so, but that's my natural thing is to say that. And, but I ended up apologizing first. Because once I realized that what I'd done was, it was stupid. There was no reason for me to react that way. When I got home, we ended up, it was pretty quick that I made it known that, man, I'm sorry. That's not me. I don't want it to be me. I didn't care anymore about making a point. I want to make a difference. And I want to leave my home in a way that as my kids grow up, that they see, you know what, Daddy's not afraid to apologize to Mama. That's what I want to be as a dad. And because my dad wasn't that way. That's the dad I want to be. And so, but it wasn't fair to Emily. She really didn't do anything. And by what my reaction, she got offended. And so, one of the notes that I wrote down yesterday that was really kind of hit me is close relationships is not about how quickly you get offended, but how quickly you get over it. And you start thinking about it, you're like, man, that's really how it works. We all can get offended at some point. It's always going to happen. It's how you deal with it. How quickly can you get over it? That's what makes a close relationship, whether you're married or just a friend or whatever it is. How quickly can you get over it? And one thing that I've always known about forgiveness is setting the prisoner free and then realizing that it was you being the prisoner the whole time. Because most of the time when you have an offense with somebody, they don't even know. It's you boiling, and it's you having this disconnect from the Lord that's not from him, it's from you. And you're like, man, this guy, man, it makes me mad, man, or whatever it is. But it's you're offended, but yet you're the prisoner because this person doesn't even know. That literally happens more often than not. And so one thing I've always learned about forgiveness is, man, it's setting that prisoner free and realizing it was you the whole time. Because, man, when you get that reconciliation and all that, don't you just feel like a weight's been lifted? That's what it is. And so, almost cried, but I hold it back. Another little note I made is unchecked resentment leads to regret. I heard a pastor say that like 3 years ago, and it just stuck with me. You always got to check yourself. Jeremiah said it many times preaching, check yourself. Like you have to. You have to check yourself every day, to be honest with you. Check yourself. Because one thing that I didn't realize until years later is how much bitterness I had inside of me for just the way I was raised, and not trying to shed a light on or anything like that. I just always thought, I'm good, wasn't in the cards for me. But what I realized down the road, when I really started just kind of processing it, had some people walk alongside me and help me realize that, man, I have a lot of bitterness. And it's because I had that unchecked resentment that I just thought I was good. And so the one thing about offenses is you got an offense and then you got offended. And they're two different things. And so an offense is an event, right? Offense, somebody hit me, somebody yelled at me, whatever. But being offended is a decision. And so when the offense comes, you have to make a decision. Are you going to be offended or are you not? And what I come to realize is, and I realized this yesterday, and that just proved my point of why I went through what I did Friday, is if you're prone to being offended, it's because you're spiritually weak. And I realized Friday I was spiritually weak. And some of y'all, I know some of y'all are like, I ain't spiritually weak, but I get offended from time to time, But and so Kennedy asked me this question earlier, and so the reason why I say that is this, if you're walking so close to the Lord, and you're just one-on-one with Him, and you just have this relationship, and everything is just perfect, right? You don't have time or even a thought that is free to get offended. And so that's why it's that way. If you're spiritually the strongest you could possibly be, there's no way you could be offended. And so not trying to attack anybody, that was me Friday. I was spiritually weak and didn't even realize it. If I realized it, I probably would avoid it. But that's just not how it works. And so the enemy, Satan, devil, enemy, whatever you want to call him, the way that he causes offenses and division, all that, it's very simple. His agenda is destruction. Okay, I think it's in Matthew 12. It talks about you can destroy a house if it's divided. That's his agenda, it's destruction. His strategy is division, right? His agenda is destruction, strategy is division, and his tactics he uses as offenses, because that's what it starts with. And so if you go backwards on that, it causes an offense, it causes division, it causes destruction. That's what happens in a lot of relationships, whether they're marriages or whatever it is. It starts with something so little. And if it's not handled quickly, it causes division, and which causes destruction. And then you ask yourself that question, how do we get here? Right? And so what's good about it, all that, is biblically there's an example of somebody who had every right to be offended. He had every right to hold it against us. Had every right to just stand at a distance, right? Talking about Jesus, in case y'all didn't know. But instead, he opened his arms up for us. And we didn't deserve it. But he opened his arms up and said, this is the way to a relationship with me. He could have chose not to do anything, but he chose it to have a relationship with us. I mean, how cool is that? Like that's the example is Jesus. And I know it's kind of cliche, Jesus' example, but that really is the example. He had a chance to hold it against us, and he didn't. He could have let us just burn, really. But he chose not to. Instead of standing back like what we like to do and let people, they going to learn their lesson this time, Jesus held his arms out. When he was on that cross, And he said, forgive them for they don't know what they're doing and all that. He wasn't just talking about those guards and Romans or whatever. He's talking about everybody. Because he didn't just die for a few people. I mean, he gave his life willingly for everyone. And so if you don't think you deserve it, if you don't think that the sins you've done, like I don't deserve to have salvation, that's what he gave his life for. And some of y'all need to be reminded of that today. So another note that I made is anger and unresolved conflict in your relationships makes your heart a living hell. Let me say it again. Anger and unresolved conflicts in your relationships makes your heart a living hell. Like that's what it's talking about in Matthew 5, just starting with verse 22. If you're only angry, that means if it's only in your heart. You hadn't acted on it. It's only in your heart. It'll make your heart a living hell if you don't deal with it. And that's the scary part, man. Our hearts, man, we love to say, man, follow my heart. Emily kept reminding me a long time ago, or I guess here recently again too, is, man, your heart's wicked. You have to really be mindful of those things. And it's crazy. So here's another thing that I think is crazy. Have you ever wondered why it is you get more, like, let's say I'm offended. You ever wonder why I get more angry if other people aren't angry with me? Has anybody ever wondered that? Like, why is it I'm offended, and let's say Mike Matthews, he's not angry with me. I'm more offended now. Like, how crazy is that? I mean, if you really unpack it of why we get offended and where it all started, it really seems almost childlike. And then I sit there and I'm like, man, God, how did I get here? How did I get here? How am I that weak in my faith? And it's all because I'm spiritually weak, and so we won't go into Matthew 22, but that's what that scripture is talking about is, he didn't call us he didn't say we had to be right. He said, I want you to be loving. That's what it's talking about. If y'all wanted the scriptures on it, it's Matthew 22, 37 through 39. One of the things that I had mentioned to the worship team is, if you want to change somebody's heart, it's not done through anger. A lot of times, like making a point versus making a difference. The point I was trying to make with Emily Friday was never going to change her heart. And honestly, all it did was just cause divisions. All it did. It caused that offense to be a lot bigger than a little speck. But it was never going to change her heart, even though when we get in that moment, we're angry. Like, we feel like, man, I'm going to change them. I'm going to prove my point to them. That's me. I don't know if it's anybody else, but that is me. I will prove my point. There's been times I knew I was wrong, but I was going to debate till they at least believe me that I may be right. And that's not healthy, baby. I'm sorry, but I have done that. But Friday, I was adamant. I'm right, and I'm going to make sure she knows. And so I went back to the kitchen, grabbed the cup she wanted me to use, stuck the spoon in there, and like, look at this. He can't even grab the spoon. He can't. And that wasn't what it was about. But I was trying to prove to her I was right. All I did was hurt her. And it's all about making a point or making a difference. Hearts are rarely changed by anger and accusations and judgment. Not near as much as they're changed by empathy, compassion, discussion, and love. We want and need to walk by love and not anger. The reason why I threw the word discussion in there is because there's got to be discussion, right? It's not like you can't talk to them. You got to have discussion, but it's how you present it makes all the difference. And so, man, I can't believe I fell to that Friday so bad, but I did. And I am able to say that I did. Guys, I'm not perfect by any means. I hope I've never let that on with anybody, that I have it all together and perfect. The one reason why I felt so just encouraged to speak today is because this is where God's pruning me. And so I may fail at it at lunch today. I hope not, but I may. My prayer is that I don't. My prayer is that when offense does come, because guys, they're going to come. I mean, there's no doubt. If you look at Luke 17:1, it says, you're going to have offenses. Some translations say stumbling blocks. Some translations say temptations. But depending on the translation, it says you are going to have offenses. And so it's not like you won't, but will you get offended? That's the difference. And that's the difference, is what you do with it. I know there's got to be people in this room that are facing some real deep pain, and I can't say I understand all of it because I don't know what all these pains are, but most offenses, they do start as little specks. They really do. Like I was saying earlier, there's some betrayal and maybe living double life, adultery, all those things. Those are major offenses. And some of those, I can't speak to all of them, but some of those offenses may have also started as specks, so I don't know. But yeah. And so one of the things that always happens when you're trying to make a point or you're offended or whatever it is you want to be right and you want to prove that they're wrong. That's usually somewhat like the 7-stage of grief or whatever it is. This is like one of the stages of I'm offended, is I'm right and you're wrong. That's something that I always try to do with Emily is, you wrong this time. I'm going to make sure you know. But that's because I'm not trying to make a difference. I'm trying to make a point. And so when we're talking about being right and then being wrong, you justify your anger, right? And if you're not careful, when you justify your anger, it justifies for you to hold this stone. Not saying you're going to throw it, but you might. That's why you just want to hold it. Just in case one day you got to throw it at somebody, right? And what I mean by that is you got to throw it in their face that you remember. You got to throw it in their face that, you remember when you did this? I got you, One of the things I heard John Bevere say, like, I don't know how many years ago it was, on this old beta Satan deal, is, do you truly forgive that person? And the question he asked is your response, I forgive them, but I'll never forget? When you hear that and you're not in this situation, I don't see how you couldn't think, man, that person don't sound like they forgave them. And that's one of the things I've had to really check myself. One of the things that I had mentioned to the worship team a few times, I think I mentioned up here maybe, is how do you pray for that person who offended you? Do you pray for them in a way of, Lord bless them, bless her right home today, amen, right? Is that how you want somebody praying for you? How do you pray when you're in, great need? Like, how do you pray for yourself? That's how you should pray for someone who offends you. If you want somebody, man, when you send out those messages and you're like, man, I need prayer, man, I'm about to go in for a job interview, or I need prayer, we're taking my wife to the hospital, she got in a wreck. Those prayers are so intense, right? And you want them. But if someone offended you, do you pray for them the same way? I know that a lot of times I don't. And it's not right. I've been able to catch myself more in the last couple of years with that, but I still fail at it. I see these little prayer chains, and man, I'll be honest with you, if it's on a big group text, a lot of times I don't even read them. And how crazy is that? because it could be me needing that prayer, and I didn't even take the time for someone else. And you gotta hold this stone. It feels comfortable to hold this stone, don't it, when you got that offense in your hand? It always feels good to have ammunition, right? I know it always felt good to me. And this stone here, I'm going to use it for this next scripture we're going to read. But, when you think about it, you're like, man, this person let me down. This person hurt me. They wounded me. Man, I just want to hold this stone, man, just in case. Is that true forgiveness? To hold the stone? We're going to turn to John chapter 8. I'm actually really good on time today. This is good. So everybody's heard this story probably. So talking about the adultery, right? And this is another reason we got this stone here. Because, man, we're so quick to judge people. So quick to judge. And so we'll start with verse 4, chapter 8, John chapter 8, verse 4. Teacher, they said this to Jesus, this woman was caught in the very act of adultery. Moses' law says to kill her. What about it? They were trying to trap him into saying something they could use against him. But Jesus stooped down and wrote in the dust with his finger. They kept demanding an answer. So he stood up again and said, all right, hurl the stones at her until she dies. But only he who never sinned may throw the first. Then he stooped down again and wrote some more in the dust, and the Jewish leaders slipped away one by one, beginning with the eldest, until only Jesus was left in front of the crowd with the woman. And Jesus stood up again and said to her, where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you? And she said, no, sir. And Jesus said, neither do I. Go and sin no more. So I was talking with the team earlier. I was like, man, didn't really think about it until I was reading this yesterday. When it talks about in verse 8, he stooped down again and he wrote some more in the dust. And then one by one, these accusers were like leaving. And I asked the team, I was like, I know it doesn't say it. I Googled it. No one knows what he said. But it became interesting to me to think that as they were saying, stone her, she needs to be, she needs to go to death, all these things. And he stoops down and he's writing as they're saying it. And this is, like I said, highly speculative, but just bear with me here. What if he's writing the sins of these people accusing her? One by one. And as they see it, they're like, whoop, that's me. I ain't doing this. Because he literally said, whoever never sinned may throw the first. And so it's almost like when I'm saying, man, look what she did, man. She deserves to die and all that. And then they're like, then he writes greed. Because I used to sin to greed real bad. There's probably a lot of sins actually could wrote in the sand for me. I was asking Truman, what do you think? Truman's always been a really good, grounded person to ask, and he was like, man, I don't know. Could be, because it was the eldest leaving first, I can't remember now what Truman said. No, where's? Yeah, it was less pride, and it could have been a mixture of both. The older people can swallow their pride a lot quicker than young people, and so when I was 20, it took him writing 4 sins of mine in the dust for me to be like, oh yeah, he got that one. I gotta go. You know what I mean? Like you really never know. But it's kind of crazy. It's kind of cool to think that, man, maybe that's what he was doing. We really don't know. And so, but the whole thing is he forgave her. Everybody judged her because, man, we're so quick to judge. We don't want no one judging us. Nobody wants, I don't want anybody judging me. You know what I mean? But I am quick to judge other people. And I don't want to be. I'm quick to be offended, but I don't want to be. And so, Mm. The comment I made earlier about being spiritually weak is being prone to be offended. The reason why I say that is because there's a scripture in Psalms that says there's a great peace for them who love my word so that they may not be easily offended. And so different translations translate differently. But that's in Psalm 119, if y'all want to write that down, verse 165. But that's what that is man, just great peace for them that love my word, right? So that they won't be easily offended. And it's not just like, oh man, I mean, everybody can say here, I love the Bible. But do you love it so much that you can't get enough of it? You know, like if I treated my love for my wife like I treat my love for the Bible, I would neglect my wife. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't read my Bible every day. I don't. I'm not going to sit up here and say I do. But if I didn't spend time with my wife every day, man, a lot more offenses be happening for sure. And so that's the kind of love that it seems to me like is they're talking about is the love that you can't have enough, because that's the love that you can't be offended. I mean, if you got your eye on the prize, which is Jesus, you don't care what's happening around you. You know, when I first came back to the Lord, I was saved as I was like 10 or 11, January 1997, I think. Sunday night, never forget it. Awesome moment. But ran from God. A lot of things happened, abandoned and all that sort of stuff. But when I finally came back just got tired of running, right? And I finally come back and I'm like, Lord, I tried everything else. I can't do it. You're the only one left. I knew deep down where I needed to be, but I mean, I was bullheaded. Still am a little bit, according to Emily. But when I finally gave up, trying to fill this hole in my life, there was a long journey that I went through, and the whole time I had my eyes on Jesus the whole time. Didn't care about anything else. And what Jesus was doing is, before this is like that's when I knew Krista. Before that, and I wasn't a bad person to Krista, but Jesus' eyes was not good. Before that, I was greedy. Man, if I saw someone in the Bible, I'd call him a hypocrite. I mean, it was just not good for me. I was angry. If you weren't my grandparents or the person I was dating, I wouldn't help you. It didn't matter what was happening. And because I realized later on, it was because I was so bitter and I was so just hurt by this abandonment. I was so hurt by these offenses that I never took care of. And it caused division and destruction in my life. It caused me to lose a ton of relationships. And so when I finally came back to Jesus and was like, man, I'm tired of running. The journey was somewhere between 7 and 10 months. I didn't do anything, but man, it was worship, praying, read my Bibles every day for hours every day. And the whole time, he was ridding all this stuff out of my life. He's ridding all these friends out of my life. I only had one friend when I came out of it. And I was okay, because there was no hole in my life anymore. He ridded me of the music, every bit of it was gone. All because I had my eyes on him. And he knew that if I knew what he was doing, I'd fight it. And so I never saw it. That was the love that I had, that I was just like, I trust you. I trust you. You know, when you love something, you trust it. And that may be where some of y'all are at, is you don't trust the Lord that he will provide and he'll take care of you. You don't trust the Lord he's going to walk you through this relationship you're in. You don't trust the Lord that he's going to help you with making this decision or having this hard conversation with a kid or a spouse. You don't trust him that he's going to prepare that heart. And that's why you have a hard time loving him. But yeah, I was greedy. Man, I was greedy. And so that's why I know that, if you love the word so much you can't get enough of it, you'll never take your eye off of it. How can you be offended if you never know what's happening around you? Where's Chandler at? Chandler, come up for a second. Said I might use him. I'm going to use him real quick. Worship team, y'all can come back on up here if y'all want to. We're going to be done here in a minute. So everybody knows Chandler, right? So, like, if I come up and I shove him, do you like that? Be honest. No. Okay. You see what I'm saying? But if I do that to my wife, she'd probably fall over, right? I mean, this dude can take it. Still didn't like it, but he can take it, right? And so one of the things that I've had to learn, and I was telling the team this earlier, I kind of went the whole message to them earlier, actually, but is I can, like I said earlier, I can talk to a friend the exact same way I talk to my wife. He didn't like it, but he didn't get offended. It's going to wound my wife. We're like, man, because there's been times that I'll say, man, I don't know why you're getting mad. I talked to so-and-so about it. They thought it was fine. You know what I mean? And so you really have to judge who it is that you're talking to see if they even, like, if they can even do it. If they can even handle what you're saying. Not saying it was bad. Like, I could have just been playing with them. I could have been playing my wife. She still gets offended. And so the reason why I brought that up is because, man, that's something I've always struggled with, is I always think that I can treat my wife the same way I treat other people. And it's not that way. It's really not. It causes division. There's been great division that I've had in relationships because of the fact that I always thought, man, I treat you all the same. It's on you if you get offended. But I treat everybody the same. It's fair. It's not fair. It's not fair to treat Chandler the same way I treat Emily. You know, and but one of the things I've had to really learn, I learned it a long time ago and keep getting slapped with it all the time, is you will help yourself greatly to not ever be offended when those offenses come if you prepare for them before they ever get here. And what I say by that is being spiritually ready. If you're spiritually ready, it's going to be hard to offend you. It really is. If you get offended by the littlest thing like I did last week, you're not spiritually ready. One of the analogies that I like to give in this is like a pro athlete. They train all the time, right? All the time training. Because they got to be trained. Like, let's take a pro athlete from football, for example. If that person does not train their body to prepare for those hits, they will get destroyed. And that's how it is for us in our spiritual walk. If we don't train ourselves for those hits, it will destroy us. It will. I can't, man, there's no doubt about it. There's not even an argument against it. You will be destroyed if you don't prepare. A lot of us, at times fall victim to, man, when I'm on that mountain, I'm good. But when I hit that valley, I start praying. Yeah, that used to be me. Still is me sometimes. But if you live that way, you'll never be ready for those hits. You'll never be ready for those valleys, because we're going to face time. It's not like if you're going to be on that mountain your whole life. I mean, that's just not how it works. You're going to struggle, and you're going to. But if you're ready, it's going to help you come out of it. I mean, you may be bruised from a few of them hits. Some of them may hurt. But you'll be in that valley a lot shorter. And when you come out, you'll be like, man, I was ready for that one. You know, I used to tell people, man, I love the valleys. Because when I'm in a valley, like, that's when true ministry happens in my life. Because that's when I fully know that I have to lean on Jesus. And so if I was always on the mountaintop, I know, as arrogant as I can be, that I would say, you know what, God, I don't need you. I'm good. And so that's why I love the valleys. You know, I heard Levi Lusko say Passion years ago, without suffering, there's no ministry. And I believe that. You're going to go through things to know how much you need him, to know how much he can help you, and to know how much that, man, he's there. He's always there. He's always there. I used to hear people say, man, I'm running back to God. He was always there. He was just waiting for you to hold your hand out. He's waiting for you to make the decision to come to him. He was always there. I knew Jesus was always there for me. But it took me a long time to realize, you know what? The hole's only going to be filled from him. And so, but some of y'all in this room, I know there's people in this room that don't know Jesus. They don't. Not personally. There's people in this room that they know him, but man, they're doing a long distance relationship right now. I know there's people in the room that got that. I know there's people in this room that, man, there's a lot of offenses that they have. They have caused great pain. That's caused this, man, tons of turmoil in their life because of the fact that they chose to be offended. And so, you hear with communion, if you got a ill will against your brother or problem with your brother, go fix it first. Man, that's how it is. Like, that's how this is. Same thing. The passages you can say gift or offering, whatever it is, in Matthew 5, it's the same thing. Make it right with your brother and sister first, because that anger will destroy you. The reason why it's there is because Jesus didn't want you to let that anger destroy you. That's why he said, even if it's just anger, it's not good. And, yeah, we're going to transition back into worship, but I want to give an opportunity for people to respond. I know there's people in this room that, man, pull your phones out and make some notes of who it is you need to call and make it right with today. I called my mom 2 hours after I knew she went to bed, but I had to know, Mom, did I give you the opportunity to forgive yourself? Because if you didn't, I want to do it right now. And people need to do that in this room. Guys, if you can't forgive and reconcile, you will never, you will never be made whole. You will walk around in just turmoil. It's not ministry. It's really not. Some of y'all have been doing that long distance thing for a while. It's time to move back home. But I know there's people, I know there's at least a couple people, if not more in here, that, man, if you think about it, I don't know Jesus. There's one thing I've heard being in this church that I need to clarify. By sitting in this pew, you're not saved. I need y'all to hear me say that. I've heard people tell me that. And man, that is scary. Just because you grew up in church doesn't mean you're saved. It doesn't. And so, for the ones that don't know Jesus, man, it's real simple, honestly. You don't have to come up the front. We're not going to sing hymns, just as I am 50 times. We're not going to do that. It's real simple. You have to admit that you're a sinner and profess that Jesus is Lord. He died for you. He died so that you'd be saved, your sins be forgiven. You have to ask Jesus to come into your life, come into your heart, and you got to mean it. You don't need a preacher to do that. I'm not a preacher, and I can help you with that. There's people in this room that can. And so if we can kind of dim the lights a little bit, I want to ask people to take a step of faith on this part here, and then we're going to go into worship. Man, if there's people in here that say, I don't know them, but I want to. Here in a minute, I'm going to ask you to stand. If there's people in here that, been doing this long distance thing, I don't want to do that anymore. Tired of fighting, tired of running, tired of doing all this. Here in a minute, I'm going to have you stand too. Some of y'all may need prayer for anything, an offense that you need help to get over. Some of y'all may need to be like, you know what, there's somebody's room that I need to go make things right with. I want to give an opportunity for that. Because, man, the weight that gets lifted on any of those scenarios, man, it's life-changing. Whether you give your life to the Lord, whether you they call it rededication a lot of times, but whether you come back to God to rededicate your life to Him, whether it is you're trying to get over an offense or where it is you're making something right, that weight is lifted. And man, afterwards you're like, man, what? Why did I allow it to get here? Then you ask yourself that question, how did I get here? That's when you start apologizing to the Lord about it. Man, Lord, why was I so foolish? Lord, help me next time to see clearly sooner. So, but yeah, if any of those things are for you, prayer for whatever, I ask you to stand, because there's people in this room who can pray for you. And I know, man, it takes a lot of courage. When I gave my life to the Lord, I'll never forget it. Emily's grandfather said, take that first step, and the Lord would walk every step with you. And guess what? That's what happened. I took that first step. It seemed like I floated to the front. Jesus is waiting on you. Whether you've been running or not, Jesus has been waiting on you to come back. But the ones in here that don't have the courage to do that, you can pray that prayer yourself. All I ask is that you tell somebody so that you can have that, someone can check on you. It's one thing to come back to God, but if you don't have any sort of follow-up, it won't last. That's what the church body's for. That's what we're here for. I'm not here to give money. We're here for community as the body. And so I'm going to pray real quick, and then, like I said, if any of those things, no one's going to judge you, I promise you. No one's going to judge you. I've stood up several times because I needed prayer for healing, needed prayer for whatever it is. Some of y'all's marriage is going through some things. We're not going to judge you. We're family. And so I'm going to pray, and then we're going to transition back to worship. Father, I need you to give a boldness to the ones that just, they're so afraid of standing, Father, because they know they're going to be judged. Father, I pray that you give them that peace to know that no matter what, that you will make sure that they're not judged, Father. Bring them that peace, Father. Give them that encouragement of, I'm here. I told you I was here. Remind the ones that gave their life to you years ago that you're still there, Father, and that you love them. Father, I thank you for just what you continue to prune in my own life. The filth that I have in just around me at times, Father, I thank you for just removing it and reminding me of what you called me to do. Father, I love you. I give you all the glory.